The day my daughter and her husband thought they had won $48 million, they told me to pack my things and leave. Clara stood in her marble kitchen, her manicured nails tapping the counter as if each sound was a nail hammered into my chest. "We don't need your pension crumbs anymore, Mother," she said. "Just go find somewhere else to grow old. Preferably far away." Her husband Derek smirked, his eyes already glowing with the greed of someone who thought the world finally owed him everything. "We'll set you up in one of those budget senior apartments," he added. "It'll be easier for everyone." They expected me to cry. They expected me to beg. But instead I laughed. It wasn't the polite laugh of a librarian who had learned to keep her voice low for decades. It was deep, raw, and laced with a secret they had overlooked. "Sweetheart," I said slowly, my hand tightening on the leather strap of my old purse. "Did you even read whose name is on that ticket?" Their faces faltered, confusion flickering like a flame about to go out. And in that pause I knew this story would not end with me being shoved aside like unwanted furniture. If you're listening, don't forget to subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. You're probably wondering how a 66-year-old widow got here, standing face to face with her only child, the very girl I raised with my own hands, now trying to erase me from her life. To explain, I need to take you back. It started 3 weeks earlier, on a damp December morning in Charleston, South Carolina. The streets still carried the smell of salt from the harbor, and the air had that heavy coastal chill that seeps into your bones. I was doing what I had done every Friday for 32 years, walking to the corner store to buy my weekly lottery ticket. Same numbers, same ritual, same whispered prayer to the heavens. My name is Eleanor Hayes, though most people around here call me Ellie. I'm 66, retired, and widowed for nearly a decade now. For the past year, I've been living in what Clara and Derek like to call the guest house. But guests usually don't hand over nearly every cent of their pension check just for the privilege of existing. Every step I took that morning, I carried the weight of sacrifices made for a daughter who once clutched my hand on the way to school, promising she'd take care of me one day. Promises, I would soon learn, are fragile things, especially when $48 million dangles in front of greedy eyes. And that's where this story begins. When people hear about betrayal, they usually imagine strangers, maybe colleagues or neighbors. They don't picture their own child. But betrayal that comes from blood feels different. It burns hotter, it cuts deeper, and it leaves scars you cannot hide. I raised Clara alone from the time she was 3 years old. Her father, William, walked out one stormy night and never looked back. He left nothing behind but unpaid bills and a wedding ring I could never bring myself to pawn. From that moment on, it was just me and her against the world. I worked double shifts at the Charleston Public Library, cataloging dusty history books by day and tutoring high school kids by night. Every extra dollar went to Clara. When she wanted piano lessons, I found the money. When she dreamed of going to a private academy, I swallowed my pride and begged for scholarships. When she applied to college, I drained my savings without hesitation. I told myself it was worth it. I told myself I was building her future. For years, Clara seemed grateful. She'd hug me after recitals, whisper that I was the best mom in the world. She promised she'd take care of me when I was older. I clung to those words like a lifeline. But things began to change when she met Derek in college. He came from an old Charleston family, the kind who bragged about ancestors fighting in wars and whose names were etched on marble plaques downtown. Derek liked to dress like he belonged in a glossy magazine. Tailored suits, shiny cars, expensive watches he couldn't quite afford. Clara, dazzled by that world, slipped further and further away from me. Still, I was proud when they married. I wore my best blue dress to their wedding, the one I'd sewn myself years before, and smiled through every photograph, even though Derek's mother barely spoke to me. I told myself that love had changed Clara, but marriage would bring her back. It didn't. When I retired, I sold my modest townhouse, the place where Clara had grown up. where her height marks still showed on the kitchen doorway. I used most of the proceeds to help Clara and Derek buy their dream home, a sprawling white estate with wide porches and magnolia trees in the yard. They promised I would always have a place nearby. I believed them, but promises fade. Instead of being welcomed, I was tucked into their guest house, a converted carriage home at the back of the property. Derek called it a win-win arrangement. I could be close to family, and they could offset the costs with my pension. At first, I told myself it was temporary, but weeks turned into months, and I realized I had become their live-in maid and unpaid babysitter. Every time I cooked dinner or folded their laundry, I tried to remind myself, this is family, this is love. But each time Clara averted her eyes, or Derek referred to me as extra baggage, I felt the truth pressing heavier on my chest. I had given up everything for my daughter. And slowly, I was beginning to understand she had given me up long before the lottery came into play. The guest house looked charming from the outside, white shutters, ivy curling along the brick, but on the inside, it was a cage. My pension check was gone the moment it arrived, swallowed by household expenses. Derek would hand me a neat invoice every month, as if I were some stranger renting an apartment from him. At first, I told myself I was helping. After all, Clara and Derek were raising 2 children, Anna and James, both bright-eyed and full of questions. I wanted to be near my grandchildren. I wanted to matter. So, I cooked every meal, folded every piece of laundry, cleaned every corner of that big house, while Derek bragged at dinner parties about how seamless their home life was. Seamless because I was the seamstress, stitching everything together in silence. But the mask slipped quickly. I overheard Clara one night on the phone with a friend. She laughed, a sharp, careless laugh that didn't sound like the daughter I once knew. "It's perfect," she said. "Mom covers her own expenses, plus she does all the housework. It's like having a housekeeper who pays rent. Genius, right?" Her friend cackled. I stood frozen in the hallway, clutching a basket of laundry so tightly my fingers ached. They didn't see me as family anymore. I had become a business arrangement. The humiliations piled up. At parties, I was ordered to serve cocktails and cheese plates, then ushered out of sight like a servant. "Guests don't want to trip over old people," Derek muttered once. When neighbors asked about me, Clara brushed it off. "Oh, she likes her little cottage out back." My existence became something they packaged neatly, explained away. Then came the worst blow. Derek suggested moving me into a senior facility across town. He presented it as though he were offering me a gift. "They have activity nights, fitness classes. You'd have more freedom," he said, sipping his wine like he was discussing the weather. I looked at Clara, hoping she would object, but she nodded instead. "It might be best, Mom. You deserve independence." Independence. That word tasted bitter. I wasn't being given freedom. I was being erased from their lives. I started noticing other cracks too. Credit card bills left on the counter, late notices stuffed into drawers. Derek's real estate business was faltering, and Clara's spending habits didn't slow down. Designer handbags, spa weekends, catered events, always more, always hungry for the next shiny thing. Meanwhile, I scraped by on $50 of pocket money each month. My only indulgence was the ritual I had kept for 32 years, a lottery ticket every Friday. The same numbers, tied to memories that no one could take away. Clara's birthday, my wedding date, the day I signed my first library contract. Each number a piece of my life, stitched together into hope. I told myself it was harmless dreaming, but deep down, I think I was waiting for the universe to balance the scales, waiting for justice. And justice, I would soon discover, was on its way. It was a quiet December night, the kind where Charleston's air turned heavy with mist and the harbor lights blurred like ghosts. I was curled up in the guest house, reading a book from the library's donation pile, when the television cut to the lottery drawing. "The winning jackpot tonight is $48 million, the anchor announced, her smile polished her voice too bright for the late hour. I watched as the numbers dropped one by one: 6, 12, 27, 39, 44, Powerball 19. For a moment, I thought my heart had misfired. Then I scrambled for my purse, my hands trembling like brittle leaves in the wind. There it was, my ticket, creased and worn from being tucked into the same wallet pocket for weeks. I read the numbers once, twice, 3 times. Every single one matched. I had won. After 32 years of routine, of whispered prayers, of enduring disappointments, the universe had finally answered. $48 million. Enough to buy freedom, enough to silence every insult, enough to rewrite the rest of my life. My first instinct was to run to Clara, to share the miracle like we once shared birthdays and Christmas mornings. But then I remembered the laundry lists, disguised as invoices, the laughter about monetizing my mom, Derek's plan to ship me off to a facility. This win wasn't for them, it was for me. I slipped the ticket back into my wallet, behind an old photograph of Clara as a little girl, missing teeth, wide smile, pigtails flying in the summer wind. My throat ached, wondering how that child had grown into someone who could look her mother in the eye and see nothing but a burden. Sleep never came that night. I sat by the window of the guest house, watching fog curl over the magnolia trees, replaying Harold's words from years ago. Ellie, justice doesn't always knock loud. Sometimes it slips in quiet, like the tide. By dawn, I had a plan, but fate moved faster than I expected. The next morning, Clara asked me to join her on a grocery run. I agreed, out of habit more than desire. She tossed her designer bag into the cart and strutted down the aisles, rattling off demands. At the checkout, I fumbled for coupons from my purse, and that's when it happened. Her hand darted in before I could stop her. "Mom, let me help," she began, rifling through the side pocket. Then she froze. The lottery ticket fluttered between her manicured fingers, her eyes widening, her face draining of color. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Do you know what this is?" I smiled faintly, a storm already building in my chest. "Yes, Clara," I said softly. "I know exactly what that is." By the time we pulled into the driveway, Clara's hands were shaking so badly she could hardly grip the steering wheel. She didn't even bother to unload the groceries. She bolted inside, waving the ticket like a holy relic. "Derek!" she screamed, her voice echoing through the grand hallway. "Derek, get in here now." He appeared from his office, still in a pressed shirt, though his tie hung loose. "What's the matter?" She shoved the ticket into his chest. Look at the numbers. Last night's draw. It's us. We won. 48 million. For a moment, Derek's smug mask cracked. His jaw dropped. His eyes scanned the ticket, then his phone as he pulled up the winning numbers, over and over, like he didn't trust his own vision. Then his lips curled into a grin that made my skin crawl. "This changes everything," he whispered. "New house on the Battery, private schools for the kids, a yacht, why not? And Ellie," he turned to me, his grin sharpening. "Now we can finally set you up in a proper senior facility. Luxury, of course. You'll thank us." Clara clapped her hands, already swept away in fantasy. "Yes, Mom, you'll have nurses, activities, everything you need. And we'll have space again, real privacy." They spun dreams out loud, feeding off each other's greed, forgetting I was standing there, talking about me like a piece of luggage they could ship off now that money had arrived to fund their freedom. I let them dream for a moment. I watched their faces glow with false triumph, their voices rise with feverish excitement. Then, when the room fell quiet enough for me to hear the hum of the refrigerator, I spoke. "There's just one thing you both should know," I said. They turned, expectant, impatient. "That ticket," I continued slowly, "is in my name. I bought it, with my money, with the same numbers I've been playing for 32 years, which means I slipped it from Derek's clenched hand and tucked it gently back into my wallet. It belongs to me." The silence was heavy, suffocating. Clara blinked like she hadn't understood English. Derek's face flushed deep red. "Don't be ridiculous," he snapped. We're family. Family shares. I tilted my head. Family shares? Is that what you call charging me rent from my pension? Turning me into your maid? Planning to lock me away in some facility? Clara's eyes brimmed with panic. Mom, we didn't mean. Oh, you meant it, I said, my voice steady, sharper than I'd intended. But here's the truth. This win doesn't change everything for you. It changes everything for me. And for the first time in years, I watched my daughter's confident smile shatter like glass. Clara and Derek spent the rest of that weekend circling me like vultures. They brought me coffee I didn't ask for, smiled too wide, and spoke in careful tones, as if I were a fragile client they needed to win over. But beneath their forced charm, I saw the panic burning. They knew I wasn't going to hand them the ticket. On Monday morning, I drove into downtown Charleston to meet with someone who had never failed me, Franklin Moore, my old lawyer. Franklin had handled my bill after Harold died, a steady man with silver hair and the kind of eyes that see more than you say. He shook my hand firmly. Eleanor Hayes, congratulations. I exhaled. I haven't claimed it yet. I needed advice. You came to the right place. He opened a leather folder, but then paused, studying me carefully. Before we talk about the lottery, there's something else. Something your late Aunt Margaret left in my care. My stomach tightened. Aunt Margaret. He slid over a file, thick with documents. She left you a trust, $250,000, invested quietly, accumulating interest. She instructed me not to reveal it unless I judged you were in need or at risk. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Clara had always complained that Margaret favored me, but I never imagined this. While I was folding laundry in Clara's guest house, I had a fortune waiting for me all along. Franklin's voice broke through my thoughts. There's more. Margaret suspected your daughter's husband wasn't financially sound. She asked me to watch closely. And she was right. He produced another set of papers, bank records, court filings, red ink balance sheets. Derek's real estate business has been operating at a loss for 3 years. He owes nearly $70,000 in back taxes. Their credit cards are maxed. The mortgage on the house is leveraged twice over. They're drowning, Eleanor. I stared at the numbers, each one a blade slicing through the illusions Clara and Derek had built. The fancy cars, the dinner parties, the designer dresses, they were nothing but smoke hiding a fire that had been burning for years. They planned to use your pension to keep them afloat, Franklin said gently. And now they've set their eyes on the lottery. But you don't have to play their game anymore. I felt something stir in me, something I hadn't felt since Harold was alive. Strength. Then it's time for a reckoning, I said quietly. That evening, I called Clara and Derek into the main house's living room. They arrived expectant, Clara carrying a binder filled with color-coded tabs, Derek with a bottle of wine like a peace offering. Mom, Clara began, rehearsed and polished. We've drafted a comprehensive plan to help you manage this win. Before we talk about my money, I interrupted, sliding Franklin's documents onto the coffee table. Let's talk about yours. Derek leaned forward, his face drained of color the moment he saw the first page. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. I sat back, calm, steady, and for the first time in years, entirely in control. News travels fast in Charleston, especially when millions are involved. By Tuesday morning, 3 news vans were parked outside Clara and Derek's estate. Reporters leaned over the iron gate, microphones raised, voices calling, Mrs. Hayes, is it true? Did you win $48 million? I watched from the guest house window as Clara opened the front door, hair perfectly curled, a silk blouse shimmering in the sun. She smiled like a pageant queen. We are so grateful for this blessing, she gushed. Our family will use it wisely. Our family. The words made my stomach turn. Derek appeared behind her, shaking hands with a local anchor, as though he were the one who had spent 32 years buying tickets. They acted like the stars of a reality show, performing gratitude while plotting behind closed doors to ship me off. That afternoon, Clara knocked on my door with a glass of sweet tea. Mom, you should rest. Let us handle the press. Reporters can be overwhelming at your age. I took the glass, set it on the table untouched, and smiled. Thank you, dear, but I think it's time I spoke for myself. Her smile stiffened. That's not necessary. But by evening, when the reporters were still camped outside, I stepped out of the guest house and walked toward the cameras. Clara and Derek rushed behind me, their voices hissing, "Mom, don't!" I didn't stop. "Mrs. Hayes! Mrs. Hayes!" The crowd erupted as I reached the gate. Microphones and cameras thrust forward. I stood tall, the December air sharp in my lungs. "Yes," I said clearly. "I am the winner of the $48 million lottery. The ticket is in my name. I purchased it with my own money." The reporters gasped. Questions flew like arrows. Behind me, I felt Clara freeze, Derek's hand tightening on her arm. I raised my voice over the chaos. "For the last year, I've been living here in my daughter's guest house, paying them $1,300 a month from my pension, cooking their meals, caring for their children, doing their laundry. In return, they planned to move me into a facility because my presence was inconvenient." Cameras flashed. Gasps rippled through the reporters. Clara stammered, "That's not..." She's confused, but I didn't let her finish. "This money changes nothing for them. It changes everything for me. I will no longer be treated as a tenant in my own child's home. I will live free, independent, and with dignity." The crowd roared with more questions. Clara's face flushed crimson. Derek's jaw locked tight. I could hear the whispers already. The greedy daughter, the shameless son-in-law. Their carefully polished image crumbled in real time, broadcast across Charleston and beyond. I turned and walked back through the gate, ignoring Clara's desperate, whispered plea. "Mom, please, you're ruining us." "No," I thought, "you ruined yourselves." 2 weeks later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment overlooking the Ashley River. The air smelled of salt and jasmine, the kind of scent that carries both memory and promise. For the first time in years, I breathed without weight on my chest. I had signed the lottery papers, taken Franklin's advice, and placed most of the winnings into a trust. Enough for me to live comfortably, enough to build a scholarship fund at the library where I'd spent my life working, enough to ensure that the rest of my days belonged to me. The senior community was nothing like the cage Clara had imagined. My apartment had 2 bedrooms, wide windows, and shelves lined with the books I'd always dreamed of keeping. Neighbors stopped by with muffins and warm smiles. For once, I was not an obligation. I was simply Eleanor, friend, neighbor, storyteller. Meanwhile, Clara and Derek's world collapsed. Their debts surfaced, creditors called, and Derek's real estate empire finally crumbled. I heard whispers from neighbors who used to admire them. Foreclosure notices, repossessed cars, invitations rescinded. Then came the letter. Clara's handwriting, shaky and rushed. "Mom, please. We made mistakes. Derek was under pressure, and I let him influence me. We need help. The children miss you. I miss you. If you could just..." I folded the paper gently, feeling the ache in my heart. A part of me longed for the little girl who once clutched my hand, promising she'd take care of me someday. But another part remembered the cold eyes that had said, "Go disappear, mother." I wrote back with steady hands. "Clara, love cannot survive without respect. I gave you everything, but you treated me as less than a person. I hope one day you understand what family should mean. Until then, I will live my life with dignity, on my own terms." I sealed the envelope, placed it in the post, and felt something inside me close like a door finally locked. As the sun sank into the river, painting the water gold, I lifted my glass of sweet tea and whispered the lesson I wanted anyone listening to remember. Family is not about blood or shired walls. Family is about love, respect, and kindness. Betrayal may shatter your heart, but sometimes it also sets you free. And when justice arrives, it might not come when you expect it, but it will always come right on time.